Hi, I'm Talicza.
And I'm Rachael, and this is Transatlantic Crime, a true crime podcast that covers stories from each side of the pond. Every week, we will both cover a separate story with a running theme.
Disclaimer, this podcast will contain swearing and details that some people may find offensive. If you are of a sensitive disposition, listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Transatlantic Crime.
So close. So, okay, this week we're going to do stories that involve marginalised victims. Obviously, one from the UK and one from the US. I'm going to go first. I don't know if you've heard of it, but my story is the Ipswich serial murders.
I used to live in Ipswich.
No! I was about to explain to you, like, where it was. I don't know if were you living here at the time? Because it's October 2006.
It was afterwards.
Okay, so it already happened.
Yeah, I lived there in 2009 to 2010, 11, something like that. So it was like aftermath, things were cleaned up, but I don't know everything.
Okay, cool. So this happened in October 2006 in the red light district in Ipswich, which is in Suffolk, as you well know, Rachael.
Yes.
So if you're looking at a map of England and you look at London, you need to go up and then east. So it's on like a bit of the country that has like Norfolk on it, and it's just quite like flat and coastal and really rural. So like not much goes on there.
Yeah, it's a really small town.
Yeah.
And then it's about like 2 hours from London, I think.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so what happened was girls started going missing. And the first girl to go missing was a girl called Tanya Nicol, and she was 19 years old. She disappeared late on the 30th of October 2006. She was at high school and everything was fine, but then she left home at 16 to live in a hostel, and she started working as a sex worker to fund her addiction to heroin and cocaine. She had originally worked in massage parlours, which is obviously a lot safer, but then she was asked to leave on suspicion that she was using drugs, so that forced her to start using street sex work. Her mum had no idea that she was a sex worker and thought that she had been working in a bar or a hairdresser's. And it was actually her mum who reported her missing when she didn't return home or get in contact after 48 hours, which was unusual for her. A witness came forward to report a woman she believed to be Tanya talking to a man who was inside a dark blue car that night. This is thought to be the last sighting of Tanya Nicol alive. And that night, caught on CCTV, there's some grainy images that show a woman matching Tanya's description, but no clear image of the driver or the license plate of the car that she got into. And then 2 weeks later, another girl called Gemma Adams went missing elsewhere in Ipswich. So she was a popular child, she was from a middle-class family, and as a teenager she got addicted to heroin. She'd been working as a prostitute to finance her drug addiction, which had already led to the loss of her job with an insurance firm. Her partner was at the time also a heroin user and knew she was working as a prostitute or a sex worker, although I'm reading this from obviously a dated bit of internet copy and pasting. So her partner was at the time a heroin user and knew she was working as a sex worker, although her family didn't. Her decision to work on the streets was something that basically nobody was aware of apart from her boyfriend. She was seen on West End Road in Ipswich, where she'd been living, and she disappeared on the 15th of November at about 1:15 a.m. On the 2nd of December, the 25-year-old's body was spotted in a stream 7 miles from the centre of Ipswich by a horrified water bailiff. And apparently he's still haunted to this day by this discovery. She'd been missing for 2 weeks when her naked body was found in Belstead Brook. And when police divers began searching the area for more clues into her death, 6 days later on the 8th of December, they discovered another body. And that body was Tanya Nicol. Both these bodies had been, they believe, like killed elsewhere and then dumped in water. But the water was really fast moving, so they couldn't get any evidence. Basically, they'd been like washed downstream, and then they were naked, but they apparently weren't sexually assaulted, and they had loads of like silt in their hair and loads of like branches and stuff that the police had to like go through with a fine tooth comb to try and find some sort of evidence.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine finding a body
in a stream, like on your nice walk in little town of Ipswich?
Yeah. And everyone's like, oh, it's a mannequin. Never a mannequin. Never.
Who just throws away mannequins in the river anyway?
Yeah, exactly. Like, Although there is an allotment behind my house, and I saw like a mannequin arm, or like what I was like, that's not a mannequin arm, that's a dead body. And everyone was like, I even like posted it on the like My Favorite Murder Facebook group, and they were like, that's a mannequin. I was like, it could be a body. They were like, no, it's a mannequin.
Our next door neighbors, they bought like this really creepy prop, and it's a mannequin, but it's
that's so LA, Rachel.
Sorry, but I don't know. It's like not a normal mannequin, so I think it's a prop for a movie. And they were having a Christmas party, and she dressed it up in like black, something like a murderer would do, basically. Like put like black tape on its head and like put makeup on it and like sat it like down in the party. Yes. And then her boyfriend was like, can we get rid of this? And she was like, no, I think we can sell it. We can sell it. And they are now moving, and Will, my husband, was throwing away some trash in the bin the other day, and the mannequin was just sticking out.
That's a good way to get the police called.
Yeah, scared the shit out of him. I'll send you a picture.
Oh yeah, definitely. I want to see this. So both of the bodies were found in cold running water, and they'd been moved from one area to another, like by the flow of the water. So there was evidence that both Tanya Nicol and Gemma Adams had been strangled, but in both cases, pathologists could not be sure of their final cause of death, if it was asphyxiation or drowning, suggesting these girls may still have been alive when they were thrown into the water. Then 2 days after after those bodies were discovered, on the 10th of December, a third body was found in the woodlands at Nacton, nearby Ipswich town, in a woodland in front of a school, found by passing motorists. Again, horrifying. Annalise Sarah Alderton, aged 24, a mother of one, she was also 3 months pregnant, had been living in Colchester, and she moved to Cyprus with her mum in 1992 after her parents had separated, and they returned to Ipswich in 1997. She'd attended high school and gained good grades in her exams, but she'd been addicted to drugs since the age of 16, shortly after her father's death from lung cancer. She disappeared on the 3rd of December and was last seen on the 1753 train from Harwich to Manningtree. Alderton got off the train at Manningtree at 18:15 before going on to Ipswich on another train arriving at 18:43. Alderton was found naked and was posed in a crucifix position. She'd been strangled to death, and her body was then believed to have been dumped in the woodland where she was found. Most likely she was killed and dumped at the site very soon after she went missing. Her pregnancy was revealed by the autopsy, and her family were first informed of it by police officers. So she was obviously keeping a secret. And also from the train journey, she'd basically gone from Essex to Ipswich. I think there's like it's a legal red light district there.
Yeah.
So you won't, because in England it's like illegal to solicit sex. So it's not illegal to sell sex for money, but it's illegal to stand on the street and ploy your trade, basically.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's the rule in America?
I think it's different by state.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense. Do you know what it is in LA or California?
I mean, I see people in LA doing it, so. But I think you can still get arrested. So it must be against the law. Because, they have like stings and where cops will like drive up and someone will like offer them something and then they arrest them.
Yeah, like I was listening to a really good podcast, Criminal, and it had a transsexual woman, and she was basically illegally in America, like what are they called, like undocumented immigrants.
Yeah.
And she knew the rule that like if you ask if they're a police officer, they have to tell you. So she got into a cab with a potential John and said to him, "Are you a police officer?" And he said no. And then they discussed like what was going to go on. And then I think she went to touch him, and as soon as that happened, he was like, "Right, get out the car." And she was like, "You have to tell me if you're a police officer." And he said, "I'm not a police officer, the taxi driver is." Which is so fucking sneaky.
What? Oh man.
Yeah, so fucked.
Yeah.
So it makes me think that like you're okay to stand on the street if you actually like touch someone and prove you're a sex worker, then you get arrested. Was right. What I got from that anyway.
Yeah, you're probably right.
But yeah, I don't know. Okay, so So Anna Lee Alderton, she was found in Woodland. She was posed, which is obviously different from the other 2 victims before, but they believe that she was killed and then dumped at a site, which is the same. So the next victim is Paula Clennell. In just 48 hours after the report came into the police about Anna Lee, another incident got reported. A member of the public had discovered the body of Paula Clennell, 24. These girls are all so young as well.
I know.
It's fucking horrible.
Yeah. That's the time that you make mistakes too.
I know, exactly. And it's just like all the stupid shit that I did when I was that age.
Yeah.
Like if some boy was like, "Oh, do you want to get in my car? Do you want to go out for a drive?" I'd be like, "Yeah."
Right.
It's like, are you fucking mad?
Right.
I know. It's like, I remember we were on holiday once and these guys we were in Spain, I think. And it was a group of girls and the guys they were like Spanish guys and they were like, "Oh, let's go into town." Like, I was like, "How far away is it?" They were like, "Oh, yeah, it's just a club, like about 20 minutes drive, we'll drive you." And I was like, "Hell no, you could be a rapist."
Yeah.
And then he was like, got really offended and left and the girls were like, "Thanks," and blew our chance. I was like, saved your life.
Probably.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the fucking death wagon to the club. No thanks. So, Paula Clennell, she moved to East Anglia 10 years before her death following the breakup of her parents' marriage. She had 3 children with her partner and all of them have been taken into care and adopted due to her drug addiction. Clennell herself had spent some of her childhood in a referral unit and it was shortly after being placed there that she started taking drugs. She'd given an interview to a local news crew just 7 days earlier discussing the murder of Gemma Adams and Tanya Nicol, and said how, although she was concerned for her safety, she was very wary of getting in cars, she needed the money. She's thought to have disappeared on the 10th of December at approximately 20 past midnight, which is so fucking weird because obviously I've been watching documentaries about this and they interview her and you can tell she's obviously like down and out and she's been taking drugs for a while because with the way she's speaking, her speech is really slurred and she's just like, if when you're coming off heroin, like you're in agony. And it's fucking weird that she spoke to the news crew and then she got attacked. Yeah. It's a little bit like, in the Golden State Killer case when a guy says at the town hall, he'd never attack me, he'd never get me and my wife, and then like the next week that guy got attacked.
Yeah.
It's just this creepy thing of like maybe he was watching the news.
Yeah.
Like the killer.
That's true.
And saw her and was like, "I'll fucking get you," or whatever. It's horrible.
Probably.
So her body was found on the 12th of December near Levington. Clennell was found naked but not sexually assaulted, and a post-mortem reported that she had been killed by a compression of her throat. Paula Clennell had disappeared on the same day that Anna Lee Alderton had been found dead. This serial killer appeared to be abducting, killing, and dumping his victims in quick succession, with the discovery of the bodies obviously having no impact on his continued attack. So yeah, it's pretty brazen. Annette Nichols was found just a few hundred meters away from Paula Clennell on the same day, and she was spotted by police helicopters that were sweeping the area. 29-year-old Annette Nichols was addicted to heroin and had been working the streets to pay for her habit. She'd been a drug addict since the early 2000s, shortly after completing a beautician's course at Suffolk College. Soon afterwards, she'd started sex work to fund her addiction. After moving to a housing association home from her council house, Nichols asked her mother to look after her only child, a son. She was thought to be staying with a man in Ipswich at the time of her death. So just to explain, like, housing association house compared to a council house. Like, a council house is just free. You just stay there. And, like, a housing association house, I think you pay, like, a certain amount of rent. So it's almost like, it seems like her life was getting maybe a bit better, and maybe she had a bit more money to be able to, like, afford a housing association place.
She was on her way up.
Yeah, she seemed to be, like, her life seemed to be getting a little bit better. She was initially thought to have gone missing on the 4th of December, but at the trial it was revealed she was last seen in Ipswich Town Centre on the 8th of December. The family reported her missing after they grew concerned at the news of other murders. Her addiction changed her like flicking a switch, her cousin said, after her death. We basically just lost her. Nichols' body was found naked but not sexually assaulted and also posed in the crucifix position. Definite cause of death could not be established, but her breathing had been hampered. Okay, so at this point, it's been 10 days and there's been 5 murdered young women.
That's crazy. This guy was going nuts.
The pressure to catch somebody, it was a bit like the Yorkshire Ripper case. Basically, he was taking them down at a rate which was like unprecedented.
Yeah.
A murder investigation was launched under the codename Operation Sumac, and police warned women in the area not to work the streets for their own safety. What a fucking stupid thing to say. Like, you think that that's their favourite thing to do? Like, they're well up for it. It's just like a misunderstanding of why people turn to sex work.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, don't bother, you'll get killed. I know.
That was normal anyway.
Yes, fucking tell me something I don't know.
Right.
Police believe the women had not been murdered where they were found, and these were dump sites the killer was using to get rid of the bodies. So, this is fucking creepy. There's a guy called Tom Stevens, and that's my brother's name. So, he's like a proper suspect and really fucking creepy. And I've just been like, Tom Stevens, ugh. So this is one of those typical things where there's like a high-profile investigation, and there's somebody who inserts himself into it, and you're like, why is this your business? Why are you around here hanging around? Fuck off. Right. So like, this guy is unbelievable. So he spoke to the media on a regular basis. So he's a 37-year-old man, and he just looks like your run-of-the-mill white guy, like bit lanky, kind of like curly-ish, blondish hair.
How old was he?
37.
Okay.
But I think, like, from what I'm reading here, like, from what I found out about him, I think he might have, like, mental health problems or learning difficulties or, like, something, because the stuff he does, or he might just be crazy, but the stuff he does is unthinkable for, like, a normal person that didn't do this.
Okay.
So on November 21st and on the 30th of October, so the 30th of October, Tanya Nickel goes missing. And then on November 21st, before any of the bodies have been found, he calls the police and tells officers he doesn't want to be seen as the next, I'm doing air quotes here, Ian Huntley.
Okay.
And if you don't know who Ian Huntley is, he's basically, he's a guy that abducted 2 schoolgirls called Holly and Jessica in England. And he spoke to the police and the media so much, like too much. And kind of incriminated himself. He was like a school caretaker.
Yeah, I went down. That's who I immediately thought of when you said, like, oh, Tom Stevens he just injected himself into it. I went down a hole one day and I watched like all of his interviews, like when the girls went missing, and he would, you know, they got him like coming out of his house, and he was saying he was the last one to see them, but
I know,
he was
why
being
would you
really
say
helpful that? And yeah, and the whole drama with the girlfriend, like that's definitely another episode that we have to talk about that. But
oh fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like, there's only a couple of people in England that have ever been given like proper like new identities and stuff, like who weren't murderers, they were just like involved in the case.
Mm-hmm.
And like she is one of them, his girlfriend.
Oh wow.
Because she lied about where he was on that day. Like, she gave him a fake alibi.
Yeah.
And she didn't get very long in prison for it, but then everyone hated her so much that they had to give her a new identity.
She's a very like she has a very distinct face.
Yeah, she does. Like a very like she's got like a very like heart-shaped face, hasn't she?
Yeah, and so I don't know how she could like change her identity. If she just changed her name,
she'd probably have to
get
a wig.
Yeah.
That's a wig and a fake mustache job.
Yeah.
Or like even plastic surgery, because yeah, she is fucking recognizable.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to this absolute nut job. So yeah, he said he didn't want to be seen as the next Ian Huntley. The next day, he was formally interviewed by the police and his home was searched, like rightly so. 2 days later, he called the police to ask about the inquiry. He offered to visit massage parlours and get information for the police, and he was told not to. You're not a police officer.
That's funny, because I have something similar in my story.
Really? Fucking crazies be cray.
Just people who think that they're investigators.
Yeah, like us.
Yeah. I'm no I would never do anything like that.
Yeah, no, just to clarify, I am in no way qualified for even this, for even reading this piece of paper.
Yeah, but here we are.
And yet here we are. So after he offered to go around the massage parlours, he said he felt suicidal and had been forced to give up his job. Probably because he was just being fucking weird and people thought he probably did do it.
Yeah.
On December the 11th, he spoke to officers about the dead women and said they were all on drugs. Well, fucking no shit, Sherlock. We know. Also, that really is something the police would have found out, like, as part of their inquiries. Like, as soon as you find out as soon as you find, like, a dead body, you find out everything you can about that person. And I'm sure the police knew.
Right.
That's not, like, news to them.
No.
This is a weird bit, though. He said he would have strangled the women if he had been the killer.
Okay.
And I guess they probably wouldn't have released details of exactly how they were killed because, like, they didn't exactly know themselves.
But for someone to say something like that, like, what normal person would be like, oh yeah, I mean, all these dead girls, this is how I would probably kill them.
It's like when OJ wrote that, like, if I was guilty book.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, like, you can't blame the police for thinking he seems fucking guilty.
Right.
On December the 12th, neighbours reported seeing Mr. Stevens vacuuming his car despite the weather being wet. Now, I don't really know what that means, because I think you can vacuum in the rain. Maybe that's just me being British, but I don't see why vacuuming the inside of a car matters. Washing the outside of a car if it's raining, that is a bit weird.
Maybe because it was going to get dirty again from mud?
Yeah,
you know?
That's a very good point. Very good point, Rachel. You've always been more practical than me. I would be fucking hoovering that car in a snowstorm. Okay, so just after midnight, Mr. Stevens walked the streets with flowers to lamppost, told officers he thought the girls might have been drugged. Stop elaborating. On December 14th, he told police he was concerned DNA linking the women to him might be found in his car. He later told officers how he could drive into the red light district without being seen on CCTV cameras. On December the 15th, he told his employers
that Do you think the cops were like, please tell us more? What else do you think?
It's fucking weird, isn't it? It's like, Is this voluntary information?
Right.
Because if you're just saying this out of the blue, like would you like a biscuit?
Yeah.
I would have strangled him. Like, what? You fucking weirdo.
Right.
December 15th, he told his employers that he had sex with all 5 women. I thought he got fired. He's got a new boss. And had acted as a taxi service for them. Mr. Stevens called the police to say, this is 3 days later after that. He called the police to say he was worried about whether he had a split personality and if he was, in air quotations, doing things and did not know about them. Instead, going back to his normal persona. He also said he knew the girls and would do errands for them in return for sexual favours. At this point, they arrested him, because fuck me.
Yeah.
And he answered all questions. They held him for as long as they could, but they didn't find any solid evidence to keep him detained. Which just kind of goes to show he's just saying mad shit. Yeah, so they couldn't find anything to keep him detained, basically.
Even though he was like, oh yeah, I drove them around and I had sex with them. And
Yeah, but they're sex workers. So there's going to be like DNA evidence from men who hung around with them. If they had sex with that person last, then the person's DNA would be there anyway. So anyway, they couldn't find any evidence, like in his house, in his car, from the things that he'd said. It just all seemed like mad rambling, basically.
Yeah.
And then on the 19th of December, 5 a.m., the police arrested a second suspect, a 48-year-old, a resident in the heart of the red light district. 2 days later, on the 21st of December, a statement was issued announcing that the second suspect was Steve Wright, and he had been charged with the murder of all 5 women. And at this point, Tom Stevens was released on bail, and then investigations were dropped against him. So he just fucking wasted a shitload of everybody's time.
I wonder what happened to him.
I hope he either got charged with wasting police time or he got some mental health help, because he's obviously not okay. Okay, so how did they come to arrest Steve Wright? So when the forensic evidence was gathered, DNA was found on 3 of the women who were found out of the water, because obviously the water washed a lot of evidence away.
Yeah.
And there was fibre evidence on all of the victims. So there was fibre in the girls' hair that were found in the water. The police ran the DNA through a database and they found a map. So it's like our version of CODIS. I don't know what it's called here, though. Steve Wright had been arrested in 2002 for stealing £80 from the till of a pub that he was working at. And as a result, his DNA profile was logged on the system. Yes, please. Fucking love it when that works.
Yes.
Like, fuck you, sticky fingers. Steve Gerald James Wright was born in Norfolk in April 1958. He joined the Merchant Navy after leaving school. In 1978, he married and had a son. then got divorced, and then in 1987 he married another woman, and they got separated in 1988, so that did not last long, and then got divorced. He worked as a dock worker and a steward on the QE2, which is like a big famous cruise ship. If you've ever heard of the QE2, basically stands for Queen Elizabeth II. It's like the most British thing in this story. And then he was a lorry driver, like a trucker, a barman, and just prior to his arrest, he was a forklift truck driver. So he became a father again with another lover in 1992, and he built up large debts through gambling and had recently been declared bankrupt. He had twice tried to commit suicide, firstly by carbon monoxide poisoning, and then in 2000 by an overdose of pills. He met his last girlfriend, Pamela Wright, and they shared a surname, but that's just a coincidence, in 2001 in Felixstowe, and they moved to the house in Ipswich together in 2004 in the heart of the red light district. There's no coincidence. Because Wright admitted that he had used prostitutes while he was in the Navy, sex worker, and continuously throughout his life, whether he was in a relationship or not. He denied absolutely everything, and he also did a lot of no comment interviews. So in a pre-trial hearing in January 2008, it was revealed the DNA of Steve Wright was found on Annalee Alderton, Paula Clennell, and Annette Nichols. Furthermore, fibres found on the bodies were matched to Steve Wright's car, his home, and his clothing, with the blood of 2 victims found on his jacket. Under interrogation, he said very little, answering no comment to almost all the questions that were him. I always find that trial is really fucking selfish, because that means that the relatives and everybody has to come and hear evidence about how they were killed, and it just puts the family through it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The murder trial of Steve Wright started on the 14th of January 2008, and he pleaded not guilty. His defence claimed Wright had used prostitutes and had visited all of the victims, and that's why DNA was found linking him to their bodies. The prosecution was able to provide evidence from CCTV and number plate recognition software that Steve Wright's car had been found in the red light district on the nights a number of the girls went missing. The CCTV footage believed to show Tanya Nichol talking to a male driver of a dark blue car matched the description of Steve Wright's car at the time. He took the stand during his trial, which again is fucking stupid, I think.
It really is. It's so arrogant too.
Yeah, and it's like you think you're that good of a liar.
Right.
You're like, I'm going to fool all of these people.
Right. You think you're so smart.
Yeah, well, he's fucking not, because when you watch the footage, so we're not allowed cameras in the courtroom in any case whatsoever in England. So there's always in shows, there's always an actor that looks vaguely like the person they're prosecuting, or there'll be a courtroom sketch, and then someone will just tell you what they said.
Right.
It's not even recorded. You have a court reporter who writes it all down, and that's it.
Right.
Which is why I'm kind of jealous of America, because you have cameras in the courtroom, which is fucking great.
Yeah.
The prosecution would say to him, there's so many coincidences linking you to this case. Is it a coincidence that Tanya Nichols was seen the night she disappeared and was murdered getting into your car? And his answer was always the same. He would reply, it would seem so, yes. To every single question. Why even get up there?
Right. Also, that's an answer that you want to punch someone in the face to say something like that.
Exactly.
Just say yes.
Yeah, it does seem like, yeah. Anyway, so the jury, however, thought the forensic evidence against him was too overwhelming, and he was found guilty on all counts.
Great.
Good. They really weren't gone long, the jury. It doesn't say exactly how many hours, but I think it was the same day. So basically what they think happened was, after engaging in sex with the sex workers, he strangled them or smothered them to death using his bare hands. And he got up, dressed, and got back into his car, where he'd drive home, go to sleep, and go to work the next day as if nothing had happened. I've looked on some YouTube videos, and some people have called into question the DNA evidence against him, they believe in his innocence, suggesting that the DNA evidence proves that he had contact with these women, but does not provide that he killed them. An argument that was played out in court during his trial, which again just seems like bullshit.
Yeah.
Pamela Wright, who was his girlfriend at the time, she thought he always went home to bed because she worked a night shift. She worked a night shift, so he would drop her off and then he would go home to bed. But he was in fact out trawling the streets and murdering people. She told how she visited him in prison after his arrest, trying to get the truth, but at that point she didn't believe that he'd done it. He admitted to her that he slept with prostitutes during their relationship, including 3 of the victims, but told her he didn't kill them. She believed him until his trial, when he was on the witness stand. She knew his claims of being out in the middle of the night because he couldn't sleep were untrue, He never had any problem sleeping. Mm-hmm. This, along with understanding his history of sleeping with sex workers and the DNA evidence against him, convinced her he was guilty.
And him being a huge liar to her.
Yeah, and him just generally being a fucking dick, obviously. Right. Because she was saying that he was really possessive, that he would call her all the time when she was out. And if another man started looking at her, he would throw his arms around her, and she said she felt like a substitute mother. Mm. And then she said there was an incident where he was driving me to work at the call centre when I saw a girl smile at him in a strange way. It was a look of recognition. I instinctively thought she knows him. Mm-hmm. He seemed to watch the car as we slowed down approaching the junction where she was standing. I looked at Steve and he was glancing at her, and I said, "What the hell is she looking at?" And he just said, "I don't know." Alarm bells were ringing in my mind. I began to suspect from that moment on that he was using sex workers, but I didn't challenge him. And this is the most awful thing. I remember saying to Steve that the police should tell these girls to stay off the streets until they find the maniac responsible. He just stared ahead at the road and said, "It's probably some foreigners doing it." Fuck you, Steve. So yeah, he is currently serving his sentence at Long Lartin Prison in Worcestershire, the hardest of all the English counties to pronounce, and still remains largely silent about the murders and his motives. He has been approached numerous times by psychologists, researchers, and journalists, but has refused all interviews. He's a man that has never explained his actions or shown any remorse for the pain and suffering he caused. At his sentencing, the judge told him this was a targeted campaign of murder and recommended that Steve Wright was never released from prison. He currently holds the grim record of Britain's fastest serial killing spree.
Wow.
And that is Steve Wright, the Suffolk Strangler.
Wow. Good job.
Thanks.
That was a lot.
My mouth's so dry. Sorry. It's like, how much do I do? How little do I do? But we'll get there.
That was a lot of good info. Especially the twist with Tom Stevens, your brother.
Yeah, my brother Tom didn't do it. Whoa! He doesn't seem the type. Like,
no.
He's too lazy. He'd be like, "Oh, it seems like a lot of work."
Oh, not tonight. Maybe tomorrow.
Oh, Ipswich is ages away.
Yeah, by the time that I was going to say about Ipswich, like by the time that I lived there, which was 2008, which is when he was going through trial, like obviously that was big news, but they had cleaned it up so much.
Oh, really?
You wouldn't know that anything like that was going on. And it was like around the football stadium, and I used to work in the football stadium, and it was just kind of...
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah, it was like, I served like food and drinks.
No.
It was like an on-call. Yeah, hot dogs. An on-call
hot
kind of
vendor.
thing. Yeah.
Like, Rachel, come down, we need some hot dogs.
You're the hot dog girl. Come on down.
Someone phone hot dog. Her name's Rachel. Whatever.
But yeah, it was just like completely cleaned up. Like I would walk there for work and no one would be around until match time. So
you need to be careful. Although he was in prison, so
yeah, at the time it was like people were like very vigilant anyway because it had just happened the past few years.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It was
though, keys in the knuckles.
Right. Always.
Always. Yeah, always.
All right. So this week I followed the missing case of Olivia Carey Lone Bear. She was 32 years old when she went missing in 2017 in North Dakota on the 3 affiliated tribes reservation. So North Dakota is like a huge open space and there's not a lot there. It's where the faces in the rock.
Oh, Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, Mount Rushmore is in that area, but that's like the only thing there, you know?
Okay.
So a little bit of backstory on Olivia and the place that this takes place in. Olivia Carey Lone Bear, or Cedar Woman, that was like her Native American name. She was born in Stanley, North Dakota on October 11th, 1985, to Iris Sherman Forebear and Harley Tex Lone Bear. Her dad was named Tex.
That's amazing.
She was a child of the Dripping Dirt clan, and I'm not even going to try and say it in their language. It's like Maxoxadi. So I don't even want to.
Maxoxa. That's definitely wrong. Yeah. So ignore me.
So she grew up around Newtown, North Dakota with her 4 brothers and 2 sisters. When she was a teenager, she moved to Montana and Washington to attend high school. While still in high school in 2003, she had her first child, a daughter named Haley, but she finished up school and she got her high school diploma, even though she had just had a baby.
Good girl. I could never do that.
Nope. By school. A couple of years later, she had another baby in 2005, but unfortunately he died within 8 months. So around that time, she kind of traveled back and forth between Washington State and North Dakota, where her family was. And then after a few years, she decided to settle back home in Newtown. A little bit about Newtown. Around the time that Olivia was growing up, it was a small town next to the large Lake Sacagawea in the region of the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara Nation Reservation, also known as the 3 Affiliated Tribes Reservation. The reservation spans about 1 million acres in North Dakota. Around the same time that Olivia had moved back home, an oil boom, or the Bakken boom, named after the formation where the oil was found, that was happening in the same area. So Newtown went from a small, quiet town of a few thousand people to the population doubling almost overnight.
So what year was this, sorry?
This was like 2009-ish, 2010. So kind of around the same time as your story, too.
Yeah, like you always think of oil booms as something that happened in the 1800s.
Right.
And, like, that was it.
Yeah.
But, like, I guess that America's such a fucking huge place that there probably are places where people haven't even been there and, like, discovered what they could potentially steal.
Yeah, there's so many huge spaces. And another thing that was weird about this is I was trying to research, like, how big this place was, because a lot of places were saying, like, oh, it doubled overnight and, you know, the population, so many people came in. I think they don't even know how many people came in because people are just coming in. There was thousands of young, mostly single men. They came from around the country to work in the oil fields. You could make a ton of money. Like, I knew people from Minnesota who did that. Yeah, you would go to North Dakota, live in a little trailer home for 2 months, work 24 hours a day, or just work, make a ton of money, and then you'd either come back to Minnesota, or you would, like, stay and hang out for a couple of weeks, and that was like life there. So thousands of young, mostly single men came from around the country to work in the oil fields around Newtown. While it was helpful to many people, lowering the unemployment rate and bringing huge amounts of money to the state, it created strain to the towns surrounding, and crime rates grew, obviously, because a shitload of people come in and nobody knows what's going on. Because
that's shit, isn't it?
Yeah, right. So, and because of the huge amounts of, like, open spaces and men who were just making tons of money and they were single and they didn't have anything going on, and it was a small town, it was almost considered like the Wild West where anything goes.
Yeah.
So there was also some strain between the tribes because some of them owned land, like individuals and families owned land where the oil was, and they got tons of money from, like, royalties from selling the land, and then other people were just kind of left dry, like they weren't really sharing it around. So that was pretty much the world that Olivia had kind of moved back into. She came back to Newtown, you know, after a couple of years and having a couple of kids. She was a super hard worker and she had several jobs. She worked in the casino because the reservations have casinos.
Mm-hmm.
She was a games dealer. She worked at a golf course, and she worked as a bartender. She also grew her family. She had 4 more kids over the next 6 years.
Fucking three jobs and 4 kids. Like, Jesus, woman.
Yeah, but I mean, it sounds like she had her family around to help support her, and she was just around her family all the time. They all loved each other.
Yeah, that's so helpful.
She was described as outgoing, always up for an adventure, and she loved hanging out with her family. She was really proud of all her kids. All right, 2017. At the time of her disappearance, she was living with her father and her 5 children. Her mom had died a few years previously. On October 24th, 2017, she was last seen driving a borrowed gray 2011 Chevy Silverado. I don't know cars, but this is a truck. It had a dented tailgate. She had borrowed this truck from a friend. His name was Jim Hoffhenke. In an interview for the High Country News after her disappearance, Jim said that she was his running buddy.
What does that even mean? Does that mean drugs?
No, like, I guess jogging? Like, that's... But
literally, okay.
Yeah, but apparently, so I kind of want to talk about a little bit about him. He was a white guy in his 50s, and I think he would, like, they met in the bar that she worked in.
A white guy in his 50s for me is just bang in the danger zone.
Exactly. Like, single guy, nothing going on. He would lend her his truck. So the truck that she was driving, that was his. And so that day he came by to drop off groceries, but no one answered the door. And obviously she had taken his truck. When her family came home that evening, she was gone. She had left her jacket, which it's October in North Dakota.
Yeah.
It's already cold. Like, it's already freezing. She left her jacket, she left her wallet and cell phone.
Okay.
The truck was gone, though. So during the investigation, a little bit down the road, the guy, Jim, he was interviewed twice with police, and he had cooperated by giving them his cell phone and letting them search his property. He did not report the truck as missing, though. So I'll just leave that there. Yeah, that's kind of the end of Jim's story. After, like, digging, there wasn't really much mention of this guy, so I just think it's a little bit weird. So 3 days later, October 27th, Olivia's family reported her missing. Things were slow from the beginning. There wasn't a huge amount of urgency from law enforcement because they said they had no proof or probable cause that she was abducted. So until they can prove that a crime was committed, they weren't really going to do a lot, which frustrated her family.
Where are her kids? Like, she's not going to just piss off and leave her kids. Like, I always think this about like women that are reported missing. Like, right. Okay, so they didn't have substance abuse issues. They didn't have a history of leaving, and then, like, all of a sudden they just leave their kids. Like, right. You wouldn't do that.
No. Her dad, obviously, like, she was really close with her dad. Super weird. So the family just started searching on their own, but on the 27th, I think, is one of her brothers was, like, posting on Facebook to different people, like, have you seen Olivia? Have you seen Olivia? And then that's when the rest of the family was like, we should report this. You know, we should say something because nobody has seen her. She was last seen, I think, leaving a bar, which no big deal.
No.
So about a week later, they had started organizing a search party, the family did. There were complications with the different law enforcement areas. So in that area, they have the tribal police, the state police, and the federal police.
Kind of weird that they need 3 different ones.
I think it was back in the 70s, they created a law. Like a lot of tribes, they wanted to keep their own laws and keep things in check themselves.
That makes sense.
So they kind of started creating laws to say, like, they will take care of things, but also, like, they're really underfunded. They don't have a lot of people. So they do need help from the state police. And that's where things get tricky because there's different jurisdictions and some people, you know, in this case, the state police didn't have time to help or they didn't take it that seriously.
Yeah, like it kind of gives them a chance to, like, palm it off on somebody else and be like, no, we haven't got enough time.
Right.
And be like, oh, well, it's your responsibility.
Right.
No, it's your responsibility.
Yeah.
Then stuff just falls by the wayside.
Right. One group thinks that the other group is helping or taking care of it, and someone has more resources than the other, and it's just not good. So I got a quote from one blog. It's called Scary Mommy Blog. They said it kind of well, which was, they said, the ongoing pattern of violence is long and complicated. A large contributing factor to the problem is mistrust and a lack of communication between local law enforcement, tribal law enforcement, and the federal agencies. Another quote that I found, like, not even about the law enforcement and that whole deal, is missing Indigenous women. They're kind of seen as like not valued. So when someone goes missing and it's an Indigenous woman, nobody puts a lot of effort into it. So this quote, they said, Indigenous women go missing twice, once in real life and a second time in the news, because nobody really reports on it. It just shows that they're not a priority. Mm-hmm. So the family were also not communicated with very much. Olivia's father said in an interview, "There's just so much we could have done earlier, and we couldn't because we didn't know. That's the frustrating part about it. Every day I find out something new we should have done 3 days ago." Her brother, Matthew Lone Bear, he started to take charge. Like, if you look at any of the interviews, he's the one giving the interviews. He's the one like giving a press conference. They started a Facebook page and they started a blog on WordPress to leave like updates and to ask people for assistance. Mm-hmm. They had to search the 1 million acres of land. After like searching around the land, they moved beyond that and they started searching the cities for the missing truck. They offered reward money. They didn't stop. Unfortunately, they were against the clock. Winter in North Dakota is like the tundra. It's like the North Pole. So it started snowing. The lake froze over. It was too cold to search. So this is where things get a little bit weird.
Okay.
A woman named Lissa Yellowbird Chase. She is a self-appointed amateur sleuth. She came from the same area as the Lone Bear family. It sounds like she had her own run-ins with the law in earlier years, and she had gone to jail and she came clean, and she started obsessively doing this. So at the time, she was already in the middle of investigating several other missing Indigenous people. That was like her passion. Mm-hmm. If they were missing Indigenous people, she was like out there trying to help the families, trying to like spread the word. So she offered to help Olivia's family, who welcomed her in. But then over time, Olivia went missing October. She started helping, I think, maybe like a month or two later. And it seems like over time, she may have overstepped her boundaries.
Oh, no.
In an interview with Matthew, he called her a thorn in their side, and that she was kind of acting as like a savior. Like, oh, I'm gonna help this family, and I'm gonna find her, and I'm gonna blah blah blah.
Yeah, like without results, that's kind of unhelpful.
Right. And it, if you're just on Facebook sharing and I saw several interviews with her where she seems like a very like abrasive, straightforward woman, and she was just like
yeah. It kind of makes it about her.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what the brother was trying to make the point about. She just kind of took over and wanted to be the one talking to press or whatever. But the cops, they were also frustrated by her because she was like posing as an investigator, and she was telling people at press conferences, "Don't wait for law enforcement," which can be dangerous.
Yeah, because evidence collected not properly isn't worth its weight. Like,
right,
if evidence is like found without police and stuff, like it can't be taken to account in court, so there's just like literally no point.
Right, exactly. And you also might, you might bother the family, or you might scare someone away, or if you don't know how to do it properly, you might ruin it. So if you're going to be an amateur investigator, maybe be better friends with law enforcement.
Yeah, that's like my advice.
Right. All right. So the family stopped talking to her, yet she persisted in helping to search for Olivia. So in July 2018, almost a year ago, 9 months after Olivia went missing, Lissa said she had a feeling.
Right.
So she took her boat onto Lake Sacagawea, which is right by Newtown, and it's about half a mile from Olivia's home. She had sonar equipment because she was an amateur sleuth.
Fucking hell, she's prepared.
Right. I think I read too that she tried to offer it to Olivia's dad, Tex, but I'm not sure how true that is, or like what exactly happened there.
Yeah.
So, and she, in one interview, she was talking about how she had a mentor who he owned like a business that had sonar equipment and would like search for drowned people in the lakes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she felt like she had the confidence to use sonar equipment and just go for it.
Sure. Give it a bash.
Yeah. So she had this equipment, and after a few days like going out on her boat, she picked up an outline of a truck in the place where she had a feeling that something was.
She's gonna be the fucking murderer, isn't she?
I don't know. I don't think she is, but I just like she's just weird. She said something about how I don't even want to like mess up her quote, but she said something that the only thing that can separate Olivia from her children is death. So
this is
I wanted to do this for her children.
Creepy woman.
Yeah, I don't know if she just has, you know, like the other guy, like your guy, Tom Stevens, like just wanted to, yeah, you know, just wanted to like get herself in there, get like show that she knew something, like show that she has passion for it. I don't know, whatever. Anyways,
she finds the truck.
She finds the outline of a truck. She alerted authorities. Can't remember what they're called, but they're like a part of law enforcement, like the fish and boat section or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like dive and rescue and all that.
Not even that. I think it's like nicer. Like they don't dive.
Like, they just poodle about, and if they find something, they might.
Right. Yeah, because there's a lot of like fishing laws in the Midwest, like where all the lakes are. So I think they drive around and ask people for licenses or something. I don't know.
So cute.
Yeah. So, but that section, so she had told them, and because they were the ones who had the boats, and they had previously told Olivia's family that they did not have boats available to search the lake, which is pretty shitty. So this whole time she might have been in the lake and they didn't have the resources to go see.
But did they really not, or were they lying?
I don't know.
So when she said it, they were like, yeah, okay. But when the family asked, they were like, no.
Well, no, she took her own personal boat out. She had her sonar equipment and
like Quincy on the water.
Right. There was another thing about how she was saying like, oh, the motor on my boat kept breaking, but I had to get out there and, you know, whatever. Even though the family were just kind of like, hey, can you chill out and leave us alone? She was still like, I'm going to go look. And she found it.
Yeah.
So the truck was brought to the surface. The search for Olivia had come to an end. Her body was found inside.
Oh my God.
And a lot of the information that I got about her, because a lot of the articles were just like, oh, missing woman, family searching for her, the end. You know, it wasn't like she's this kind of person or she has 5 kids or whatever. So the following month, August 2018, the family held a walk for Olivia. They used the hashtag MMIW, which is Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women.
Yeah.
The investigation is ongoing because they don't know how she died.
Fuck.
Or they're not releasing it. I don't know. And it's still like there were articles from March 2019 and they still don't know how she died, which I feel like that's a long time to not know how someone died.
Like surely it can't be drowning because like it'd just be like a straight cut and dry drowning.
Yeah, and there are a couple of theories. I'll read the rest of this and then we can talk about theories.
Yes, go.
All right, so the investigation is ongoing because her death is undetermined. The disconnect between law enforcement, tribal police, and federal police still slows down efforts. Tribal police do not have jurisdiction over non-native people, so even if they were close to finding someone, they wouldn't be able to arrest them. They wouldn't be able to... Basically, they can't arrest a white guy for murder or fucked. Kidnapping. Yeah.
I was going to say, like, what happens if you're fucking mixed race? What happens if you're, like, of dual heritage? Like, you're half Native American and you're half white American.
It's not... Oh, you mean if you were the murderer or the kidnapper?
Then who deals with you?
I think probably the tribal police would still.
Okay.
Like, they would be like, yes, we can actually do something, you know?
Yeah. It's fucking weird.
So it really is. It's just so complicated, and I understand why they did it in the first place, but then also they should have like made the law a little bit more specific. Mm-hmm. So at the same time of this happening, local and federal law enforcement, they still aren't making it a priority. But between 2018 and now, the awareness has grown on the issue through the hashtag, and government bodies have started to take notice. They released statistics on missing natives, and more notably on female natives experiencing violence. They released a statistic, and it was 84% of female Indigenous women experience violence.
Female Indigenous women.
You're right. But 84%, like, that's pretty close to 100%. You know?
Fucking nearly, like, if people were rounding up, it would be there.
Yeah. One politician claimed the number of missing and murdered Indigenous women is an epidemic. So government, they're starting to take it a little bit more seriously. Hopefully it'll change the laws a little bit and change law enforcement's perspective on it. It has also not deterred Lissa Yellowbird Chase, who continues to help families search for their loved ones. So she's still going at it.
Will you go away?
Right. It's so weird though, because it's like you can't be like, just stop it already, because she is the one who found the truck.
Yeah, but the question is fucking why and how. Like, I find that suspect.
Right. Who just has a feeling and then it's the exact spot where it happened,
So this is a question of, like, do you believe in the supernatural? Like, do you believe people have abilities to like psychically predict where people are buried or stuff like that? Like, I personally don't.
I don't know if she was claiming that she's connected to that kind of thing, or if she was just like, I have a feeling I need to prove myself or something, like, I don't know if it was more, I don't know.
Like, let's boil it down to, like, the bare bones. That's a poor metaphor, but like, but how the fuck do you know that truck is in the middle of the lake? Like, that's a very, very lucky or good guess. And
exactly, and it's a big lake.
Suspect. Like, like, lakes in America aren't fucking around. Like, lakes in England are like someone dropped a cup of tea. Like, lakes in America, like they separate countries.
This specific lake was created because I think the Mississippi River or something had, I'm going to sound so stupid.
Like, broken its banks. No, you're not.
I think the government had, like, they created this river, and it was or it was like on the outskirts of towns, and so there were already, like, old chimneys, at the bottom of the river. There was, like, things that if you were using sonar equipment, you'd be like, oh, that's just
some old shit.
Right, exactly. Like, finding a truck and thinking that that's the thing is a little bit, I don't know.
It's lucky.
To know specifically, it's exactly.
To say the least.
Yeah.
So when we were younger, we had this lake that was, to you guys, it's like a fucking puddle, but it was the biggest lake in Andover, which is where I'm from. Tiny town. And there was a rumour that went around at school that there was a double-decker bus at the bottom of the lake.
What?
And there was another rumour that there was, like, a giant squid in the lake. It's like,
what?
Oh, fucking giant squid, are they native to Hampshire? It's such tripe.
It's like Andover's Loch Ness Monster.
It's like, was the octopus driving the bus? Like, how did it get there? Right. It was just such shit.
Oh my gosh.
Did you ever have rumors like that when you were a kid?
Yeah, we had, also Minnesota has over 10,000 lakes.
Yeah, isn't it like the lake state? Whatever.
Yeah, it is. So obviously there was like, oh, don't go to this lake because there was a dead body in it, or
there probably was.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, how many lakes in Minnesota probably have a dead body in them?
They are fucking riddled.
Yeah.
I'm glad that that's like a universal thing.
Yeah, for kids.
Yeah.
Just a body of water is creepy, and it probably has something creepy in it.
Yeah, of course.
My last line was, Olivia's family have since used their experience to help other families who have also had their loved ones go missing. So the Facebook page that they created for Olivia, they now use as like, obviously they still give updates on her missing case and what's going on, but it's mostly used for other people who go missing and how people can help and, just sharing all that kind of information. So that's the story of Olivia Carey Lone Bear, which I think is a really awesome name.
That is a very awesome name. We're going to have to do like an update if anything else comes out.
Yes, of course. My theories after thinking about it is, did she maybe just drive it into the lake? And, maybe she had a couple of drinks and accidentally drove it into the lake.
Dude, my theory is the fucking creepy woman, but it has something to do with it. Like, you do not know where a truck is. Like, she is guilty as sin. You mark my words.
I don't know. Like, so I also think of the other guy who like lent her his truck all the time. Like, what 50-year-old? It's like us. We're both early 30s. She was in her early 30s.
Thank you very much.
Do we? Well, I'm talking about myself then.
I've got like 3 months until I'm 31. So.
But like, we don't have friends who are 50-year-old white guys who are our air quotes running buddies. I didn't see a lot of information on this guy, but I find it a little bit sketchy that it was his truck. He went over there to bring groceries or whatever.
If you're the last person to see them, for me, like, well, that's where the police start.
Right. And they did, and they interviewed him twice, but I still think how hard, if he gave over his cell phone and they searched his property, like if he just put her in the lake, of course they're not going to find anything on his property. Of course they're not going to find anything on his cell phone. She had left her cell phone at home. So obviously we're going to share our resources and things like that. Yeah. So you can see too that like the BBC is the one, that's where I got the most information on this Lissa woman.
That's weird.
Because they interviewed her. Yeah.
That's really
weird. It was
weird.
like BBC Canada or something. So
yeah. Okay, well that was great, Rachel. And I'm looking forward to them catching this motherfucker.
Yeah, just finding out, giving your family some peace of mind.
Yeah. Okay, well thanks. You're off to work now, right?
Yeah, I have to go to work. I have to do my day.
Well, it's Friday night, so I'm gonna drink. And okay, good night.
Thanks for listening to Transatlantic Crime this week. If you liked what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe.
And if you'd like to follow us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Transat Crime Pod, Instagram at Transatlantic Crime, and on Facebook with Transatlantic Crime Podcast.
Thanks, bye.